this talk of care homes and commodes on tonight's show, maybe it's time to give the more mature among us a rather more glamorous treatment. The ageless and evergreen Miranda Sawyer went to talk to author Stephen Vizinczey about the re-release of his cult classic, In Praise of Older Women.
Relationships between older men and younger women are a long-standing and accepted cliché, but stories of older women going out with younger men still make for big headlines. Demi Moore was the first, but recently a whole host of older, often very successful women have discovered the benefits of going out with a younger man. They've even coined a word for them now: cougars. It's almost uncanny timing for the re-release of In Praise of Older Women as a Penguin modern classic. First published in 1965, the book tells a semi-autobiographical story of a young man's sexual education at the hands of a series of older women in post-war Budapest. It's a celebration of age and experience.
This book is addressed to young men and dedicated to older women. And the connection between the two is my proposition. American culture glorifies the young. On the lost continent of old Europe, it was the affair of the young man and his older mistress that had the glamour of perfection.
But what is it that attracts younger men and older women to each other? Come and join me on the sofa.
Thank you.
What's so attractive about younger men?
Well, they keep you on your toes and off your feet.
And an older woman. She's in a position to educate you in all sorts of ways.
Do you think, though, that there's a kind of media fetishization of this idea of the cougar? I mean, there's something slightly sniffy about that, I think.
There's something that was first really aggressive, quite brash, and really quite tacky, and I think it's such a stereotype.
Women's sexuality is still very uncomfortable in this society. People don't like talking about it. People don't like accepting the fact that women are sexual.
What the media thinks is attractive is thin young women, but the truth is that on top of Warehouse, we've got almost 3 times as many men as women, so there's really no shortage of young men that want to go out with an older woman.
So, Stephen, what made you write In Praise of Older Women?
I think it is terrible for young people to grow up with the idea that their youth is the best time of their life, and from 20 on it's all downhill. I had a girlfriend, 21-year-old, and she was terrified. Her 21st birthday was a horror for me because she was suicidal, that she was getting old. And I wrote a short story which I called In Praise of Older Women, and that eventually became the book.
From this conversation, I remember most vividly her face. I was struck by how expressive it was. One of my chief irritations at the time was the blankness of the faces of my young girlfriends. As soon as they got nervous, the faces became tight, smooth as masks. But Maya's face, with the fine lines of her 40-some years, expressed all the shades of her thoughts and emotions.
One could read it as a feminist book. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And it's in praise of older women, not the praise of young men. In my book, the kid has to work for it.
I found Maya alone every time but one during the next 2 weeks. I thought she was the most sensuous woman in the world. She was always friendly but detached, and this manner of hers drove me out into a stormy sea of hope and despair. The glint in her eyes was my beacon, though it never seemed to draw nearer. It kept me drifting around the shores of her body. When I caught sight of her bare arm, or looked at her skin uncovered by the open collar of a blouse, I thought to myself, now I will go to her and kiss her shoulder.
What about yourself now you're older? Are you still interested in women that are older than you?
Well, at my age that would be difficult. I would have to go to the cemetery. But you know, if you are a young man and you are interested in women, you know, look around in your mother's unattached friends.
Well, there you go. There's a piece piece of advice.
Yes.
In praise of older women's in bookshops from today. Now, whilst